systems thinking. How do we actually use it? What is it? And how do we use it to actually solve these kind of problems? When all the stuff that I've explained to you in the synthesis-based approach, instead of cutting stuff down and reducing it, we place stuff in context and try and understand what are the relationships that it is forming with the things that are in and around it. And that is what systems thinking is. A system is an integrated whole whose essential properties arise from relationship between its parts. We'll come to that again. Basically understand it's a synthesis-based approach, and systems thinking is basically using this kind of a mindset that you place things in context. Don't think of it as samples that exist within laboratories to actually do a research, right? Similar, when you're trying to solve a problem in a business, don't think that, okay, I'm only going to think about my business and not the other world, because the business exists in a certain context. And that is where we say the business is not inside a laboratory for you to tinker around with. Rather, it is placed in the world that is very complex. It's forever changing, it's unpredictable. And that's what we mean by systems thinking. Now let's come to this integrated whole and parts and all of that. Okay, what does this mean? Before getting into that, I'd just like to put this statement, which is very core to the systems philosophy. The whole is more than the sum of its parts. What this basically means is that if you've got 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus all of that, 1 into whatever number of things, you basically add them together, right? And then said, okay, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, whatever. If there are 35 of them, then it's equal to 35, right? But that is not the kind of equation that we're talking about here. Rather, we're talking about something like this. If there are, let's say, 1,000 people in a village, and you want to know the population of the village, right? You're not going to say 1,000 people, but population is 1,005. That's not what we mean. Rather, what we mean to say that the village is more than just the sum of its people. That is the philosophical thing that we're going for here. Don't just understand things from a very numeric perspective. Rather, understand that people interact with one another. They interact with everything else, which makes this beautiful village that we see in the real world. It's not that the population of the village might be 1,000, but that is not the village. The population of the village is not the village. That is the kind of thing we have to understand. Why? Because of the interaction between people that is happening. So you've got what we call these things as elements, and not your chemistry elements. Okay, forget that. These are called systems elements. So if we say there are 5 elements, right? 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. The interaction between them will make them more than 5. That's what it is. That's the philosophical statement. Now, coming to whole and parts. Okay, what is this whole and parts? If we were to take the whole as the business, okay, then the parts would be the people, the processes, the equipment, the money, etc., etc., etc. Right? So if the whole was the business, then the parts would be such and such. Of course, now the business, you cannot say this equation is like business is equal to people plus processes plus equipment plus stakeholders plus money, whatever. It's not just that. There's so many different kinds of things that come together and interact with one another to actually bring what is called as a business. Similarly, if you want to now zoom on, if you want to talk about the economy of a nation, then so many of these businesses become the parts, right? In earlier cases, when the business was the whole, things falling under the business umbrella were the parts. Similarly, in an economy, when you're talking about the economy of a nation, you've got businesses themselves which become parts, and then you've got policies, banks, etc. Whatever comes under the economy umbrella would become the parts. I hope